Sometimes the most important message of your life is the one that was never meant for you. Ethan Brooks stared through the floor-to-ceiling windows of his downtown Chicago office as the city lights blurred beneath a curtain of rain. At 38 years old, he had everything most people dreamed about: a billion-dollar company, a penthouse overlooking Lake Michigan, his face on magazine covers. Yet none of it mattered tonight. The conference room behind him had finally emptied after 10 exhausting hours of meetings, negotiations, and bad news. A major acquisition had collapsed that morning. Investors were demanding answers. Reporters were already circling. His phone had not stopped buzzing for days. Ethan loosened his tie and glanced at the screen again, expecting another message from his legal team. Instead, he saw a text from an unfamiliar number. For a second, he almost ignored it. Then he read the words. "Can you please lend me $40 for baby formula? I promise I'll pay you back." Ethan frowned. He had received strange messages before. Requests for donations, business pitches, scams disguised as emergencies. Normally, he deleted them without a second thought. His thumb hovered over the screen. Something felt different. Maybe it was the way the message was written. No dramatic story. No long explanation. Just one simple sentence carrying the weight of desperation. Across town, Emily Carter sat inside a 12-year-old sedan parked outside a grocery store. The engine was off to save gas. The air inside felt warm and heavy. In the back seat, her 8-month-old son Noah stirred softly in his car seat. The nearly empty formula container rested beside her purse. Emily checked her banking app again, even though she already knew the number. $17.23. Not enough. She swallowed hard. Her shift at the diner had been cut short because business was slow. Rent was due in less than a week. The father of her child had disappeared months ago. Tonight she had tried to text her closest friend for help. $40. That was all she needed. Then she noticed the mistake. Wrong number. Her stomach dropped. Embarrassment rushed through her chest. Whoever received that message would probably laugh, block her, or simply ignore it. Emily closed her eyes and whispered a quiet prayer. Back in his office, Ethan read the text one more time. Rain tapped softly against the glass. He remembered nights from his own childhood when his mother sat at the kitchen table trying to stretch every dollar. Memories he rarely allowed himself to revisit. He should have deleted the message. He should have gone home. Instead, he opened the conversation and began typing a reply. Neither of them knew it yet, but that single decision was about to change everything. Emily stared at her phone so long that the screen dimmed. She almost tossed it onto the passenger seat. What was the point of waiting for a reply from a stranger? Nobody sent money to random people. Nobody cared about someone they had never met. A soft sound came from the back seat. Noah was awake again. She twisted around and offered him a tired smile. His small fingers reached toward her. The sight made her chest ache. He trusted her completely. He had no idea she was running out of options. The grocery store lights reflected across the windshield. Families walked out carrying bags filled with food, snacks, and things they probably did not have to think twice about buying. Emily looked away. Her phone suddenly buzzed. Her heart jumped. For a moment she could not move. Then she unlocked the screen. A message from the unknown number. "Are you serious?" Emily swallowed. She hesitated before typing back. "Yes, I am sorry. The message was not meant for you." 3 dots appeared almost immediately. Then another message arrived. "How old is your baby?" She frowned. The question felt strange. Not rude. Not suspicious. Just unexpected. 8 months old, she replied. Several seconds passed. Rain tapped gently against her car windows. Another message appeared. "Do you have family nearby?" Emily stared at the words. She could have ignored them. Instead, she found herself answering honestly. "No, it is just me." In his office, Ethan leaned back in his chair. The city glowed beyond the glass. He studied every response. There was something raw about them. No dramatic details. No attempt to gain sympathy. Just short answers from someone who sounded exhausted. He opened the contact information again. No profile photo. No clues. Still, a feeling he could not explain kept telling him this was real. Ethan typed another question. "What happened?" Across town, Emily laughed quietly, though there was no humor in it. How much time did a stranger have? How much did he actually want to know? Yet the question lingered on the screen. Slowly she began typing. She told him about the diner job, the reduced hours, the rising bills. The father who left before Noah was born. She kept it brief. She did not want pity. She pressed send. Minutes later, her phone lit up again. This time there was no question. Emily looked at the notification and froze. Her eyes widened. Her pulse raced. She checked the screen twice because it did not seem possible. Then a third time. $500 had just been deposited into her account. For several seconds, she simply stared. The number remained there. Real. Unchanged. Tears filled her eyes before she could stop them. In a dark office miles away, Ethan placed his phone on the desk. He expected relief. Instead, he felt curiosity. Because one detail in Emily's story had caught his attention. A detail so familiar it brought back a memory he had spent years trying to forget. Emily sat motionless in the driver's seat, while Noah slept peacefully behind her. The grocery store parking lot seemed strangely quiet now. A few minutes earlier, she had been wondering how she would feed her son through the week. Now $500 sat in her account. It felt unreal. She wiped her eyes and looked at her phone again. The transfer was still there. Her fingers trembled as she typed. "I do not know how to thank you." She stared at the message before sending it. Part of her worried the stranger would suddenly ask for something in return. Another part feared the money had been sent by mistake. Instead, a simple reply appeared. "You do not owe me anything." Emily read the sentence twice. Nobody had said words like that to her in a very long time. Meanwhile, Ethan remained alone in his office. The building had nearly emptied. Cleaning crews moved quietly through distant hallways. His phone rested on the desk, yet his attention remained fixed on the conversation. One detail from Emily's message refused to leave his mind. She had mentioned growing up in a small town outside Springfield, Illinois. Ethan had spent part of his childhood there before his family moved away. The coincidence should not have mattered. Thousands of people came from the same area, yet something about it felt personal. He opened his laptop and searched through old photographs stored in a cloud archive. Images from years ago appeared on the screen. School events, neighborhood gatherings, faces he had not seen in decades. A strange feeling settled over him. Nostalgia mixed with curiosity. Across town, Emily finally entered the grocery store. She pushed a cart through the bright aisles under fluorescent lights. For the first time in weeks, she was not calculating every penny. She picked up formula, diapers, a few groceries, fresh fruit, milk, bread, nothing extravagant, just necessities. Even then, she felt guilty placing items into the cart. Life had trained her to expect every good moment to disappear quickly. At checkout, she glanced at her phone again. Another message had arrived. "Did you get what you needed?" Emily smiled despite herself. No stranger had ever checked on her like that. "Yes," she replied. "My son will be okay now." Ethan read her response and felt an unexpected sense of relief. The feeling caught him off guard. He barely knew this woman. He should have moved on hours ago. Instead, he found himself wanting to know more. Who was she before life became so difficult? What dreams had she given up? Why did her words feel so familiar? Then another memory surfaced. A conversation from years earlier. A promise someone once made to him during a difficult time. The similarity was impossible to ignore. Ethan leaned forward and opened a private background search tool available only to senior executives within his company. He entered one name, Emily Carter. As the first results began appearing on the screen, his expression slowly changed. Because what he found was not what he expected at all. The glow from Ethan's laptop illuminated the otherwise dark office as lines of information continued appearing on the screen. He expected to find inconsistencies. Most people would have. Instead, every detail seemed to support what Emily had told him. Public records showed a modest apartment on the edge of Chicago. Employment history matched the diner she mentioned. There were no signs of fraud, no obvious red flags, just the story of a young mother struggling to stay afloat. Ethan rubbed his eyes. He should have gone home hours ago, yet he kept reading. One document caught his attention. Emily had once attended a community college nursing program. Her grades had been excellent, near the top of her class. Then suddenly, 2 years earlier, the record stopped. No graduation, no transfer, nothing. Ethan leaned back. What happened? He found himself wondering how a woman with so much potential had ended up asking a stranger for $40. Across town, Emily carried Noah into her small apartment. The familiar creak of the floorboards greeted her. Usually the place felt cramped. Tonight it felt like a refuge. She unpacked groceries while Noah watched from a portable seat nearby. fresh food filled shelves that had looked nearly empty only hours before. The simple sight brought unexpected comfort. She checked her phone again. No new messages. For some reason that disappointed her. The feeling surprised her. She did not know the man on the other side of the conversation. He could be anyone. Yet his kindness had broken through a wall she had spent years building. She shook off the thought and focused on feeding Noah. Meanwhile, Ethan opened another search result. This one contained a local newspaper article from nearly 3 years earlier. The headline was small, easy to miss. It mentioned a scholarship recipient named Emily Carter who had been praised by instructors for her dedication and compassion. Beneath the article was a photograph. Ethan stared at it. A younger Emily smiled at the camera, holding a certificate with both hands. There was confidence in her expression. Hope. The contrast between that image and the exhausted woman from their text conversation felt striking. What changed? His phone vibrated. A message from a board member asking about the failed acquisition. Ethan ignored it. For the first time all week, he cared about something else. He opened the text conversation again. Then he typed a question. Can I ask you something? Emily saw the message while rocking Noah to sleep. She smiled faintly before replying. Sure. Ethan hesitated. He did not want to sound intrusive. Finally, he sent it. You mentioned nursing school. Why did you stop? The response did not arrive immediately. Minutes passed. Then 10. Ethan wondered if he had crossed a line. Suddenly the screen lit up. Emily's answer appeared. Because life happened. He read the sentence several times. Simple words. Yet they carried years of disappointment. Then another message arrived. This one longer. As Ethan began reading it, he realized he was about to learn the part of her story she had been trying hardest to hide. Emily sat quietly beside Noah's crib after sending the message. The apartment was dark except for a small lamp glowing from the corner of the living room. She had not planned to share anything personal. Certainly not with a stranger. Yet something about the conversation felt different. There was no judgment in his questions. No impatience. Just genuine curiosity. Several minutes passed before she finally continued typing. When I started nursing school, I thought my life was finally moving in the right direction. Ethan read every word carefully. The city outside his office had grown quieter. Midnight was approaching, yet he felt more awake than he had all day. Another message appeared. I worked during the day, studied at night. It was hard, but I loved it. Ethan smiled slightly. He could almost hear the pride hidden beneath her words. Then the next message arrived. Then my mother got sick. The smile disappeared. Emily stared at the screen before continuing. Some memories still hurt. Not because of anger. Because of how quickly everything had changed. I became her caregiver. Classes became harder to attend. Bills started piling up. Ethan remained silent, allowing her to tell the story at her own pace. After she passed away, I tried going back. Then I found out I was pregnant. The room seemed to grow still around him. Emily continued typing. The father promised he would stay. He did not. There was no bitterness in the sentence. Only exhaustion. The kind that comes after disappointment has repeated itself too many times. Ethan leaned forward in his chair. Something about her honesty struck him deeply. She was not trying to make herself look heroic. She was simply telling the truth. Emily looked toward Noah, sleeping peacefully nearby. His tiny chest rose and fell with each breath. Despite every hardship, she never regretted having him. Not for a second. I dropped out because I had no choice, she wrote. Some days survival became more important than dreams. Ethan stared at the message. Suddenly, he remembered his own mother sitting at a kitchen table years ago. She used to say something similar whenever life became difficult. A strange feeling passed through him. The resemblance was impossible to ignore. He opened an old family photo stored on his laptop. Then another. His gaze settled on a faded image from a community event in Springfield nearly 20 years earlier. Several local families stood together beneath a banner. Ethan's eyes narrowed. He zoomed in. There, standing near the edge of the photograph, was a woman he recognized from Emily's scholarship article. Her mother. Ethan sat upright. His pulse quickened. He checked the article again. Then the photograph. Then the article once more. There was no mistake. Somehow, years before either of them knew it, their families had crossed paths. Across town, Emily's phone buzzed again. She expected another question. Instead, she received a surprising message. Your mother was named Sarah Carter, right? Emily froze instantly. Her breath caught. She stared at the screen in disbelief. She had never mentioned her mother's name. Not once. Slowly, she looked down at the message again. Then a chill ran through her, because suddenly she realized this stranger knew more about her than he should. Emily's fingers hovered over the screen. For several seconds, she could not bring herself to type a response. The question unsettled her. Not because it was wrong. It was correct. Sarah Carter was her mother. Yet she had never mentioned that name during their conversation. A dozen possibilities raced through her mind. Finally, she replied, "How do you know that?" Ethan stared at the message. He had expected concern, maybe even suspicion. He could not blame her. Looking back, he realized how strange the question must have sounded. He took a slow breath before answering. "I think our families may have known each other a long time ago." Emily read the message twice. Then a third time. It sounded impossible. Springfield was not a huge town, but it was not small enough for everyone to know one another. Still, something about his response felt sincere. She sat down on the couch and looked toward Noah sleeping peacefully across the room. Then she typed, "What do you mean?" Ethan glanced again at the old photograph on his screen. The faded image carried memories he had not thought about in years. "I found a community photo from when I was a kid," he wrote. "Your mother was in it." Emily's heart skipped a beat. Very few people still remembered her mother. Most had moved away. Others had lost touch over time. Hearing a stranger mention her now felt strangely emotional. Ethan continued, "My mother used to volunteer at local events. I remember a woman named Sarah. She was always helping people." Emily lowered her phone for a moment. A small smile appeared despite the late hour. That sounded exactly like her mother. Even when money was tight, Sarah Carter somehow found ways to help others. It was one of the things Emily admired most. "That sounds like her," she replied softly. Ethan smiled as he read the response. Then another memory surfaced. One he had not connected until now. Years ago, when his family was struggling financially, a local fundraiser had quietly helped them pay several overdue expenses. His mother never forgot it. She often spoke about the kindness of a woman named Sarah. Back then, Ethan was too young to understand. Tonight, the pieces began fitting together. Across the city, Emily felt some of her earlier fear fading. The conversation no longer felt like an exchange between strangers. There was an unexpected familiarity. Now, a thread connecting two lives that should never have crossed paths again. The clock moved past midnight. Neither seemed interested in ending the conversation. They talked about Springfield, old streets, local diners, community events that no longer existed. For the first time in months, Emily found herself laughing. The sound surprised her. Life had become so focused on survival that she had forgotten what normal conversation felt like. Ethan noticed it too. Her messages became lighter, more natural, more like the young woman from the scholarship photograph. Then his phone buzzed with a new email. This one came from his executive assistant. Attached was a list of applicants for a healthcare support program sponsored by his company. Ethan almost ignored it. Then one name near the bottom caught his attention immediately. Emily Carter. He stared at the screen. Because according to the application date, she had applied for help weeks ago. Yet nobody had ever contacted her back. The discovery kept Ethan awake long after the conversation ended. His office had finally gone dark except for the soft glow of computer monitors. Most people would have closed the file and moved on. Ethan could not. He opened the application again and read every page carefully. Emily had applied to a healthcare career support program sponsored by his company nearly 6 weeks earlier. The program provided financial assistance, childcare resources, and educational opportunities for people trying to return to medical training. She seemed like exactly the type of candidate the program was designed to help. Yet according to the records, her application had never made it past the initial review stage. No interview. No follow-up call. Nothing. Ethan frowned. That made no sense. He continued digging. Eventually, he found a brief note attached to her file. Missing documentation. Application closed. He stared at the screen. One missing form had pushed her application aside. One administrative detail. One overlooked file. Meanwhile, a young mother had spent weeks wondering how to buy baby formula. The realization bothered him more than he expected. Across town, Emily finally drifted to sleep on the couch. Noah rested peacefully in his crib nearby. For the first time in months, she felt a small sense of hope. Not because of the money. Money solved immediate problems. Hope came from something else. Someone had listened. Someone had cared enough to ask questions. That feeling stayed with her even as she slept. The following morning arrived quickly. Emily woke before sunrise. The apartment felt chilly. She prepared a bottle for Noah, then checked her phone almost automatically. No new messages. She told herself that was normal. The stranger had already done more than enough. Life would return to normal now. Yet she felt an unexpected disappointment. At company headquarters, Ethan was already working. His executive assistant, Rachel, entered his office carrying a tablet and a cup of coffee. She immediately noticed his focus on a file unrelated to any major business deal. "You have been looking at that application for almost 20 minutes, she said. Ethan glanced up. Why was this candidate rejected? Rachel reviewed the information. Looks like missing paperwork. Standard procedure. Ethan leaned back. Did anyone contact her? Rachel paused. According to the file, no. A brief silence followed. Ethan looked toward the city skyline beyond the windows. That seems like a problem. Rachel studied him carefully. In the years she had worked for him, she rarely saw him become personally invested in individual applicants. Something was different. What would you like me to do? She asked. Ethan considered the question. He knew he should stay out of it. The program had rules, processes. Fairness mattered. Yet he also knew how many deserving people slipped through cracks created by paperwork and timing. Review the application again, he said. No special treatment. Just make sure it receives the attention it should have received the first time. Rachel nodded and left. Hours later, Emily's phone rang while she was wiping down tables at the diner. She almost ignored the unknown number. Then she answered. A cheerful voice introduced herself as a representative from a healthcare career support program. Emily froze where she stood. The woman explained there had been an issue with her application and they would like to schedule an interview. Emily could barely process the words. After the call ended, she stood motionless beside the counter. Then her phone vibrated with a new text message from the stranger. How is your morning going? Emily smiled. What she did not know was that someone had quietly changed the course of her future before she even woke up. Emily spent the rest of the day floating between disbelief and cautious optimism. Every few hours, she replayed the phone call in her mind just to make sure it had actually happened. An interview. A real opportunity. The possibility of returning to the path she had abandoned years earlier. Even the word possibility felt dangerous. Life had taught her not to trust good news too quickly. Still, she could not stop thinking about it. During her lunch break, she sat alone outside the diner while Noah stayed with a neighbor who occasionally helped with childcare. The autumn air felt crisp. Leaves drifted across the sidewalk. Her phone buzzed again. It was him, the stranger who had somehow become part of her daily routine. You sound happier today, the message read. Emily smiled before typing back. Something unexpected happened. Ethan looked at the response from his office and felt a quiet sense of satisfaction. He already knew about the call. Rachel had informed him that morning. Yet seeing Emily's excitement made the outcome feel more meaningful. That is good, he replied. You deserve some good news. Emily stared at those words longer than she intended. Few people had ever said something like that to her. Most conversations in her life revolved around bills, schedules, responsibilities, or problems. This felt different, personal, genuine. Over the next few days, their conversations continued. Sometimes they discussed Noah. Other times they shared memories from Springfield. Occasionally they exchanged thoughts about life, dreams, and regrets. Neither revealed too much. Neither asked for photographs or social media accounts. Somehow the anonymity made honesty easier. Yet the more they talked, the more difficult it became for Ethan to ignore one growing problem. He still had not told her who he really was. At first, it had seemed harmless. A random conversation between strangers. Then the connection deepened. Now every new message carried a weight he had not anticipated. One afternoon, Ethan's face appeared unexpectedly on a television mounted inside the diner. Emily happened to be delivering coffee to a customer when she heard the announcer mention a major business conference. She glanced toward the screen. A familiar feeling passed through her. The man giving an interview looked strangely recognizable. She paused. The jawline, the voice, the calm way he answered questions. Something about him stirred a memory. Before she could think further, another customer called her name. The moment passed. Later that evening, she received another message from the stranger. Their conversation felt as natural as ever. Yet something continued bothering her. Curiosity. A growing sense that pieces were missing. Can I ask you a question? She typed. Ethan immediately replied. Of course. Emily hesitated. Then she sent it. Why did you help me? Ethan stared at the screen. The question had finally arrived. He knew it would eventually. He considered several answers. None felt complete. Finally, he typed the truth. Because your mother once helped my family when nobody else did. Emily's eyes widened. The explanation made sense. Yet it also raised another question. One she had ignored for too long. She looked down at the number that had changed her life. Then she typed slowly. Who are you, really? Ethan read the message and felt his stomach tighten. Because for the first time since that accidental text, he could no longer avoid the truth. The message remained on Ethan's screen for several minutes. Outside his office window, the Chicago skyline glowed beneath the evening sky. He had negotiated billion-dollar deals without hesitation. He had stood before investors, reporters, and competitors. Yet this simple question felt harder to answer than any of them. Who are you, really? Across town, Emily sat on her couch with Noah asleep beside her. She was not angry. Not yet. She simply wanted the truth. Too many things no longer made sense. The money. The connection to her mother. The unexpected opportunity from the healthcare program. Pieces were beginning to fit together, though she still could not see the whole picture. Finally, her phone buzzed. Ethan's reply appeared. My name is Ethan Brooks. Emily froze. She knew that name. Within seconds, she opened an internet search. The results appeared instantly. News articles, interviews, business magazines. The same face she had briefly seen on the television at the diner stared back at her from the screen. Her heart pounded. For a long moment, she could only sit there in silence. The stranger who had listened to her fears, asked about Noah, and remembered her mother was one of the most recognizable business leaders in the country. She looked down at their messages again. Suddenly, everything felt different. Ethan watched the typing indicator appear and disappear several times. Then nothing. Minutes passed. Then nearly an hour. No response. For the first time since their conversation began, he felt uneasy. He understood why she might be upset. He should have told her sooner. He should have been honest from the beginning. Eventually, a message arrived. Why did you not tell me? Ethan answered immediately. Because after a while, I was afraid it would change everything. Emily read the words carefully. Part of her wanted to be frustrated. Another part understood exactly what he meant. If she had known his identity from the beginning, she never would have spoken so openly. She would have filtered every thought, every emotion. The connection they built would never have existed. Days passed before they spoke again. This time the conversation felt different. Not worse, just more honest. No secrets remained between them. Emily completed her interview with the healthcare support program. A week later, she received the news she barely dared hope for. She had been accepted. Financial assistance would allow her to return to her education while receiving support with childcare. The opportunity changed everything. That evening, she sent Ethan a simple message. I got in. Ethan smiled the moment he read it. I never doubted you would. Several months later, Emily stood outside her nursing classes holding a stack of textbooks while Noah laughed in his stroller nearby. Life was still busy, still challenging. Yet for the first time in years, the future felt bright. Her phone buzzed. A message from Ethan. There is a coffee shop across the street. I am in town for a meeting. Would you like to finally meet in person? Emily looked at the screen and smiled. Then she glanced at Noah, who grinned back as if he somehow understood. The accidental message that had begun with $40 for baby formula had become something neither of them could have imagined. Not because a CEO saved a struggling mother. Not because of money. It happened because one act of kindness opened a door, one honest conversation built trust, and two people discovered that sometimes the smallest mistakes can lead exactly where life intended them to go.